Well, welcome to session 4, external recruiting. We now have identified our strategy and we have a plan to support that strategy related to a specific open position or a group of positions. So now what? Well, to this point, we've been studying, planning, and strategizing, but have not really taken any significant action to fill our open position. We've been doing a lot of thinking, but not a lot of acting. We know where we want to go. We have a planned route. Our maps are before us. Our GPS is set. The engine is running. Time to head down the road and make progress towards reaching our destination. And once again, what is our destination? Hiring the best person possible for our open position or positions. So what's our next step? Well, we're going fishing. I like fishing. There's nothing better for humility than being outsmarted by a dumb fish. And I'm amazed every day at how complex fishing is. There are so many different lines and baits and rods and reels and lures, etc. And they all work in their time and place. But the real determining factor of fishing success is not necessarily tools and equipment, but location. Location, location, location. If you are fishing in the wrong place, there are either no fish or they're all small. Fish in the right place and you're going to have yourself a great day. Now, I suppose having the right equipment helps, but if the fish aren't there, it doesn't really matter what type of equipment you're fishing with. You'll catch nothing. Same is true for hiring the best people. If you look in the wrong places, the people you catch are either small, unqualified, or undesirable. Looking for an electrical engineer? Well, try finding an electrical engineer at a liberal arts college. Probably not going to happen. Looking for a reporter for your magazine? Well, don't bother to look at MIT unless your magazine is about technical issues. Now, I know this seems obvious, and you're probably saying to yourself, you mean I paid good money for this advice? Well, I realize it's obvious, but search location is very important. When fishing, you have to find and go to the proper body of water to find the fish. The fish don't come to you. You have to go to them. And you know what? The same is true in recruiting. The mistake many organizations make in recruiting is assuming that great candidates will come to them. True, some candidates will come to them, but not the truly great ones. You have to search them out and entice them to bite with a good employer brand, great marketing, competitive pay, and benefits, and a magnificent culture. The text talks a lot about the various tools and, if you will, equipment at your disposal. And that's good information and you need to study that. However, they must be deployed in the right location. And often the fish in those locations don't even know they're hungry. The people in those locations don't know that they are interested in your job. They don't even know that you're interested in working for your company. Recruiting and hiring unemployed people is easy. It's like catching fish in a barrel. But recruiting and hiring contented, employed people is more difficult, but it may actually be necessary to get the best people. Remember, you don't necessarily want to hire the best unemployed people. You want to hire the best people available. And sometimes you have to create that availability. So we'll talk some about this in this lecture, but understand, I'm not disparaging hiring unemployed people. Some of them are good as well. I'm merely trying to expand your horizons and encourage you to look at some of the unconventional fishing holes versus those where everyone else is fishing. I believe, as I'll point out in this lecture, that you should always be looking for talent that will help your organization. I also believe that you, as an individual, should always be looking for opportunities within your career. Don't pass up good opportunities for the security of a mediocre future. Your career is in your hands. Well, welcome to session 4, external recruiting. We now understand the importance of staffing and how to develop a strategy and plans to support that strategy. Of course, our goal is to fill our open position or positions, but before we can make a selection, we have to have several someones to choose from. And the more we have to choose from, the better our selection, correct? Well, not exactly. We have to have the right group of people to choose from and then the right selection tools to aid in that choice. We discuss selection tools starting next session. For now, we're concerned with filling our pool of qualified candidates for our job. Keep in mind that recruiting is not a volume game. It is a quality game. Think of it this way. Do you want to make your selection from the best of the best or the best of the rest? The untold dirty secret of recruiting is summed up in the text on page 45. In external recruiting, the organization is trying to sell itself to potential applicants, so many marketing principles are applied to improve recruiting yields and interpret yield as quality applicants, not quantity of applicants. It's about marketing, and that's true from the other side as well. When you are seeking employment, like many of you are doing now, it's all about marketing. It's about standing out from the crowd. It's about making good impressions. It's a branding issue. For those of you who are unsuccessfully searching for a job and who lament that you can't understand why you have no offers because you're doing exactly what everyone else is doing, you may have just identified your problem. You don't stand out. Organizations who only attract mediocre applicants do so because they don't stand out to the outstanding applicants. And this simple concept is not an oversimplification. It is a basis for hiring good people and for good people getting hired. In terms of this lecture, as is my practice, I will not restate the points or material covered in the text. However, I have selected a few points that I want to expand, and I will expand with a real-world perspective. In many instances, the text views the world through the lens of a big organization or a major company. Most of you will probably end up working for much smaller organizations. Big companies have people who do nothing but recruit and selection activities. That's their job. And that makes sense if my premise that staffing is one of the most important functions in any organization is true. However, in small organizations, staffing is a part-time endeavor at best. The people involved in staffing have many other primary responsibilities, but staffing activities are no less important in small versus large companies. Such has been my situation through most of my career. How do we fit this vastly important process into our daily work lives and still give it the attention it deserves and demands? Well, the obvious answer is you can't. The workload must be shared within the organization, but you should also consider using professionals outside of the organization as well. And using those resources is what this lecture will endeavor to explore further. Going back to my example in session 1, how does this process get established or initiated? Well, I said usually someone comes into the HR office and says, I have an opening in my department for blank. You need to hire someone fast. And as I said, I've yet to hear someone say you can take your time on this hire. Essentially, with this declaration, the process is initiated. But really, in astute organizations, this declaration only initiates a series of questions before the hiring process can become active. The useful guide, The Talent Selection and Onboarding Pocket Toolkit by Erica Lamont and Ann Bruce, gives a great list of questions that you can use to talk to the manager about the opening they so desperately need. Without such clarification, it's like buying a car when you've never really seen a car. The questions include, tell me about the position. Is it a newly created position or is it already existing? Tell me about its recent history. Who was the predecessor? What team? What about the team that this position is on? What are the must-have skills and competencies and experiences for this role? In particular, is it a particular background? Is it a particular education or previous employment? What are the nice-to-haves for this role? What specific technical skills are required and what soft skills are required? What are the key goals and objectives for the first year of the person in this position? What kind of person has been successful in this role in the past? And what kind has been unsuccessful? And how do you envision us partnering or working together to fill this role? These are great questions that help define both the jobs and the search. But a note is in order. These are not questions you can email to a hiring manager and expect to receive a usable result. You must guide the manager and discuss the answers. You would be surprised at the number of managers who have not given consideration to the depth of the job search that these questions engender. In addition, the answers to the questions may vary from point to point and time to time as organizational needs and challenges change. Often, professional or high-level managerial positions are given this consideration, but low-level and hourly positions do not receive such attention, and they should. The manager at times just has more work to do than can be accomplished by the current staff and needs a body to fill an opening. They're more concerned about getting work done short term than the longer term implications of organizational success. This is not a criticism, but a reality. Many managers live in a short-term world by definition. HR and people in the recruiting role must foster and guide that long-term organizational perspective. With a clear understanding of what we want, we turn our attention to the methods of marketing our position and attracting candidates. As I said earlier, a critical recognition in terms of how to attract candidates and methods used centers around the brand of our company in the labor market. There are some companies that have well-known positive brands. The mere mention of a job opening generates hundreds or thousands of resumes, even in a labor market of low unemployment rates. In times of high unemployment like today, any job opening generates intense interest. In the mid-70s, I worked for RCA Corporation in the final assembly plant in Bloomington, Indiana. The facility employed about 3,500 unionized hourly production employees. The facility was one of the most dysfunctional organizations I have ever worked in, but they paid well and unemployment was very high at the time. We were planning on opening a new manufacturing unit that would employ about 500 additional people. We did not formally advertise, but let it be known by word of mouth that we would be interviewing on December 30th for the positions. I was astounded when I arrived at work on December 30th. About 2,000 people were lined up outside the door in temperatures of 20-plus degree range, awaiting an interview opportunity. When I looked across the street in the parking lots, I spotted several tents set up by hopeful job applicants. They actually spent the night outside in those temperatures waiting for a job. Not a very attractive company, but under the economic conditions of the time, there was very little need for active recruiting. Oh, and incidentally, everyone who spent the night in a tent was hired. If our brand is good, we probably don't need much in the way of advertising or outside recruiting help. If our brand is average or poor, we need to invest more in recruitment resources. Let's say our brand is average. We need to invest a little more effort into letting the available workforce know that we have an open position. How much more? Well, it depends on what kinds of people we want to attract. In times when unemployment is low, in other words, most people are working, we need to spend quite a bit to attract those people who may not be readily in the job market. In times of unemployment, when unemployment is high, we don't need to spend as much. In other words, do we want to hire employed people or do we want to hire unemployed people? Now, this sounds like a silly question, but it is indeed legitimate. Is there an advantage to hiring an unemployed versus employed individuals? Well, it depends on who you talk to, but often managers prefer to hire people who already have jobs versus those who don't. At least they prefer to hire people who have jobs or were just recently unemployed versus those who have been unemployed for an extensive period of time. This is a good topic for our discussions forum, but it gives you something to think about. It's better to be employed at something when searching for a job than to be unemployed. Part of being attractive to prospective employers appears to be being employed. However, we may want to steal good employees from other companies. If so, we must take a different tact than merely advertising. We have to find a way to convince contented employees to leave their current company to work for us. Obviously, this is much easier if we have a strong brand, but can be accomplished in any event. Another obvious consideration is the potential of hiring people internally or promotions. And I'll leave that consideration for another later discussion. And for this example, we will assume no internal candidates are available. So what are our options in searching for this open position? Well, here are some. We can consider using contingency agencies and hiring temporarily rather than filling the position full time. We can outsource to work to independent contractors and not hire at all. We can utilize the State Employment Security Agency to help us with our search. We can use internet job boards such as Monster.com and others. We can use professional career websites and employer websites and newspapers and trade journals. We can use headhunters, which we'll talk about in a moment. We can set up job fairs, which many companies do. We can use educational institutions, outplacement firms, which we'll talk about in a moment, and internal employee referrals. The text covers most of these in some fashion, but I do want to expand on using headhunters and outplacement firms in particular. Of course, none of these methods are standalone, and serious recruiting calls for the use of a combination of methods. The final choice of recruitment methods rests on the current situation and the urgency of filling the opening. Use of executive search firms or headhunters represents another method that I have used extensively and with great success. This method, like others, has advantages and disadvantages, but also enjoys much popularity in business recruiting circles. I'll spend a little more time on this topic delving into the practical side because you often don't find frank discussions about headhunter behavior, both good and bad. This practical discussion certainly helps you navigate employment and headhunter territory as an employer searching for viable candidates, but it also should help you understand how this tool works so you can better work with headhunters as a job seeker. I mentioned earlier that we must consider hiring unemployed people or hiring those already employed. Both can be reached with the traditional recruiting methods because both groups are presumably seeking other opportunities. In other words, they're out there looking. But what about recruiting a person who is employed but content with their current employer and they're not actually looking? Isn't there some advantage to hiring contented people versus those who are not contented? But how do we get to those people who are not looking for other opportunities? Well, one good way is to tap into this rich market is to use headhunters. The text points out that headhunters work in a higher ranges of management employees, and that's true to some extent. They typically work with first-level management and above, new college grads, high-tech people, all the way up to executives. And they work for both employed and unemployed individuals. So how do headhunters reach unemployed, satisfied prospective candidates? They do so through simple networking, continuous, extensive, and aggressive networking. Let's take a trip through a typical headhunter search and see how they operate and how they gain and utilize specific contacts. I'll play the role of headhunter and you play the role of employer searching for a viable position. Let's go through a typical scenario and define your role as an employer and my role as a headhunter. My search firm, Willie's Recruiting Company, is built on the premise that I can fill your job openings, particularly those difficult openings, with exceptional, not just acceptable people. You may have found me on the internet or by referral, or I may even have placed you in a previous job. We begin our relationship with a meeting in which you share with me the particulars about the job, your company, and your expectations. We also discuss the history of your company and its anticipated future. You share anything that will help market your company to prospective candidates and improve your brand. Remember, many of the individuals may not actually be aware that they want to change jobs. I, as a headhunter, have to convince them to consider your opportunity. We discuss my fee, which may be 30 to 35% of the new hire's first year compensation, or we may negotiate a smaller rate. I would probably be willing to accept a smaller rate if you, as an employer, are willing to give me exclusive rights to fill the position. In other words, no other employment agency is allowed to provide candidates. There are other potential financial agreements that may be acceptable, but in any event, we have to establish a fee structure. You may also want to keep this job search strictly confidential. In other words, your company name will not be attached in any way to the recruiting activities. Why would we want to keep a job opening confidential? There are really a couple of reasons you may not want the identity of your company known. First, the open position may have a person already in that position. It may be someone for whom whatever reason is unsatisfactorily are not performing at all. Said a different way, there is a firing in the future. You don't want the identity of your company known for obvious reasons. You don't want that person to know that they're going to lose their job. The second reason is that the position may not be occupied, but the company has for some reason decided not to make the position available internally. This is a reason for which I disagree, but it still happens. Therefore, you don't want to make anyone mad until after you have secretly hired a person from the outside. Another reason is a very valid reason and relates to the position's perceived importance to the company, to the outside world. Let's assume the opening is for a VP of sales. You may not want your competitors to know that you are operating without a VP of sales. Likewise, when managers and executives retire, we may not want our competitors to know of the impending retirement until after a qualified replacement is in place. Confidentiality is not required, but it's an option, and it is certainly an option worthy of consideration. I, as a headhunter, will likely request a meeting with the hiring manager and others in the organization involved with the job search process. These meetings will give me a feel for the work environment and the job of your company. Remember, I am now a salesman for your company to prospective candidates, some of which may not understand how badly they want your open position. It also provides me, the headhunter, with another benefit, which I'll discuss in a moment. Keep in mind that during these meetings, you or others may be releasing confidential information to me about your company, the job, and the future of the organization. You release this information to me so I can represent your company on the open market to the public and potential candidates. Care must be taken as to what information is released and how that information is disseminated by the outside third party or me, the headhunter. You must also make sure I understand what commitments I can make to the prospective candidates about pay, benefits, vacation, reporting structure, etc. After our meeting, I go back to my office, compile all this information, and consult my database, and from that database, identify individuals who meet the qualifications for the open position. But where does that database come from? Well, this database will yield names of individuals with whom I have worked and placed in jobs in the past, or through the contacts I've made during the meetings I mentioned above, such as with the hiring managers. This is the additional benefit of the meetings with the hiring managers and others that I spoke of. As a headhunter, I am always obtaining contacts. I basically contact these individuals from my database and explain that I have an opening for a position in which they are well qualified, and I would like to put them in touch with the HR department or hiring manager of the company. I may, through my contacts, even know the salary and benefits of the potential candidates that I identify. I basically sell the prospective company to the contact and try to convince them that they should consider this new opportunity based on our previous relationship and their desire to improve their career position. If interest is expressed, I help the prospective candidate with a resume and offer that resume for review by you, the hiring manager. If I, as a headhunter, don't have a personal contact with the qualifications, I probably know of a person in a company with which I have worked in the past who does have those qualifications. In other words, I may not know a candidate personally, but I know of their position and their name. Remember, I obtained your organization structure, so I have many organization structures in my database with names. I may elect to cold call that individual and inquire about their interest in moving. I may open my call like this. We haven't met, but my name is Willie Wooldridge, and I am with the Willie's Recruiting Company. I have a job opening for which I believe you are qualified. The company is a great organization that offers good salary, great benefits, and a wonderful working environment full of opportunity. Would you be interested in talking to me or meeting with me so I can explain this opportunity further? It is very flattering to be contacted and very difficult to turn down such a meeting or inquiry. If it works out, I will assist in the resume and present it to the hiring manager. If it doesn't work out, I've got a new contact for future placement. If neither of those fishing holes yields an acceptable number of candidates, I will call my HR friends and other higher level management and executive contacts in related fields and simply ask, I have an opening for blank and I'm trying to fill. Do you know of anyone in this field with these qualifications? It could be a friend, a neighbor, someone from a competitor, someone who used to work for your company, or any other source. I would appreciate the help, and it would provide someone with a great opportunity. I, as a headhunter, don't expect you to give up your own people, but who wouldn't jump at the opportunity to help a relative, a friend, a previous coworker, a neighbor, etc.? This is a type of fishing an HR professional can't do. HR professionals have many other responsibilities and simply can't take the time to build that extensive network. An effective network includes cold call prospective candidates, referral sources, people interested in changing jobs, and companies including information and organization charts. Headhunters serve a very useful purpose, although very expensive role. They readily tap into the already employed candidate pool. As a part of their marketing campaign, headhunters regularly monitor company websites and job boards and looking for positions to which they can provide assistance. They are aggressive marketers for their candidates, the companies they represent, and for themselves. After presenting a list of qualified candidates to you, the HR or hiring manager, most headhunters help coordinate interviews, facilitate communication between candidate and prospective hiring company, and effectively market the candidate to the company and to the company to the candidate. Remember, the primary goal of the headhunter is to fill the job and gain a commission. Also understand that you are not restricted to using one headhunter. You can use multiple search firms to fill the same position. This certainly expands your reach into the marketplace, but other complications also must be managed. Once you sign a contract with a search firm and they require you to sign a contract, you are obligated to pay the agreed upon fee if the headhunter offers a candidate that is ultimately hired. Often prospective candidates work with multiple headhunters. Therefore, you may receive a resume from one candidate 2 or 3 times from different headhunters. You don't have to pay multiple fees, but you must pay the headhunter who submitted the resume first. That said, you must be able to prove who submitted it first, or you may have to pay the multiple fees anyway. Use of multiple headhunters requires management on the part of HR. I have worked with headhunters extensively in the past, and I find that many managers are suspicious of headhunter motives and actions and are not particularly fond of that form of recruiting. However, I believe this is unfair criticism. Headhunters provide a necessary service and do something HR doesn't have time and the expertise to accomplish. It is true that primary motive for headhunters is to close the deal and earn a healthy commission. I'm sorry, but I have trouble finding fault with that basic motive. Making money is a common motive in business, thank God. It is true that headhunters are constantly marketing and collecting contacts to place later. But it is difficult to criticize that action, particularly because that is why you are hiring them in the first place. There are other disadvantages of using headhunters, which I'll list in a moment, but the advantages are equally great. I also believe the disadvantages can be overcome if one manages headhunters as you should manage anyone involved in the recruiting process. So let's review the advantages and disadvantages as I see them. The disadvantages of headhunters is headhunters and search firms are expensive, 25 to 35% of the new hire's first year salary. Headhunters are representing your company to the outside world and may have information that is confidential. Headhunters may inadvertently make promises or commitments that you are not prepared to honor while enticing candidates away from their current firm. For example, I'm sure they will honor your current 6-week vacation award in your new position. Headhunters will make contact with several managers, professionals, and valued employees in your organization while fulfilling their recruitment obligations. Internal contacts may be used to lure your employees away to another company in the future. And it takes time to manage headhunters, particularly if you're using more than one to fill a position. Advantages include headhunters can tap into the already employed resources which are unavailable to most HR professionals. Headhunters have extensive contact lists and data banks which yield many qualified applicants. Headhunters can provide extensive information on candidates beyond their resume through their personal contacts. Headhunters can save time by helping coordinate the recruiting and selection process, scheduling interviews, conducting phone interviews, etc. Headhunters can devote more time to the particular search than HR professionals who are tasked with many other responsibilities. Headhunters will likely present a higher caliber candidate list than would be created by HR advertising and HR limited resources. And headhunters are expensive, unless you consider the potential long-term positive impact on an organization through a highly qualified applicant pool from which to choose. I guess you get what you pay for. As you can probably see, I'm a proponent of using search firms and headhunters for particular managerial, professional, and difficult to hire positions. In terms of an analogy, I like to trust my family doctor very much, analogous to the HR professional on site. But I don't expect or want them to do everything. I don't want my family doctor to perform surgery on any part of my body. They don't have the time to garner the expertise or to apply that expertise in a focused manner that will ensure my short-term and long-term survival. I want a specialized surgeon. By the same token, I don't want to go to a surgeon and pay their prices because I have a common cold. Think of the headhunter as a surgeon and the local HR professional as my family doctor. Both have their roles, but it is unwise to expect either to effectively fulfill the other's roles. When recruiting positions with high impact on the organization, seek professional help. Seeking professional help is a sign of efficiency, leadership, and strength. And we'll talk more about seeking appropriate professional assistance in future sessions. Another little known resource is outplacement firms. I have been involved with many organizations that were experiencing business difficulties and had to resort to layoffs. When conducting layoffs, I always use an outplacement firm to help affected employees transition from our company to finding new opportunities. Outplacement firms provide counseling and assistance to such employees. That is their goal, to help laid off employees find new employment. It stands to reason that at any given time, they must have access to a large number of recently laid off people. And unlike headhunters, they provide those people for consideration without a fee. They are a tremendous resource and are often overlooked by organizations looking for qualified candidates. And finally, another method is very simple and absolutely free. I call this method proactive recruiting. Recruit always. Look for talent everywhere and always. All management and executives should recruit constantly. If we wait until the need arises, we lose valuable time recruiting, assessing, selecting, and hiring, and then it takes a new hire up to a year to become fully acclimated in the job. If I need a person now, can I afford to wait for over a year to get the full benefit of the hire? For critical positions, anticipate and recruit proactively. Always be on the lookout for highly qualified potential employees. Let me give you an example. I was introduced to such a person who was running a medium-sized business in our local community. Deborah was an impressive lady who had an engineering background, a master's degree, and was a Rhodes Scholar. I scheduled a lunch meeting with her to determine her interest in leaving her current employer, even though I had no current open position. She indicated that she would not want to leave immediately, but sometime down the road, she may entertain a job change if the opportunity was right. I told her that I was very interested in finding an appropriate position for her someday, and we would keep in touch. I returned to my organization and spoke with the owner, CEO, and other highly placed individuals and told them all that we must hire this person at some time in the future. I was convinced that she had the intellect and the qualifications to contribute significantly to our organization in an executive role. I arranged another luncheon meeting with Deborah, myself, and the CEO. His comment to me upon leaving that meeting was, "I believe she is the smartest person I have ever met. I agree, we have to hire her at some point." We kept the dialogue going for over a year with periodic meetings and discussions. Finally, an executive opportunity came open and we hired Deborah, and she lived up to our expectations. This example makes a couple of important points. I have known leaders who are forever vigilant looking for talent. Talent does not always present itself at the time the job opening exists. At times, we must find talent and then cultivate a relationship until a proper opportunity presents itself. Much like headhunters do, human resource management should cultivate a culture in which the search for talent, externally and internally, is continuous and not dependent upon unfilled structured jobs. Also, the example illustrates that some unconventional recruiting tactics are long-term activities. At this point, recruiting becomes strategic instead of tactical. People make the difference. People create success. Finding the right people depends on where we look and how we look. Search for good people in the wrong places, and you may find yourself considering a lot of people who are the best of the mediocre population. It's where you look. And if you are looking in the right places, but your company doesn't look particularly attractive, you will not be able to get their attention. It's how you look as well. Same goes for you as a job seeker. It's where you look and how you look, and both are totally within your control. I firmly believe that opportunities don't just arise, they are created.